Hello, my name is Bernie France, and today I'm going to present you with a couple of key extension agents I have sought out for the purpose of displaying the importance of best practices and sustainability within the field of agriculture. Allow me to give a brief description of my first guest today, Dr. Eric Bendfeldt. With expertise in community and regional food systems, as well as farm-to-table connections, I wish to see the connections of how sustainability and best practices will be afflicted with growing populations, climate change, and what his field is currently working on to prevent the most damage from such.
Speaking towards these, what I'd say, intense relations, and that are frankly, there's a lot of them. I would say there's definitely a lot of transactions that happen between producer, transportation, marketing, and then composting. Do you have any suggestions for best practices for this type of work? Like, would it be more producer centric, consumer centric? Would it be focused on, like you said, different crop rotations?
Well, I think you had used a word that I think is, to me, I think it's to me I think it's sort of a crux of sort of the issues and problems with the food system when those relationships are just transactional. That are the tendency has been to focus on, sort of the efficiencies, scale, economies of scale, the lowest cost provider, and in those aspects, it becomes fairly transactional. And with my previous, I think I had left off a thought that another aspect that probably 15 or 20 years ago, there was a group called the, Agriculture of the Middle Task Force, looking at the loss of small and mid-sized farms and food businesses. And within that, you're looking at using a big word, the bifurcation of the food system, where you saw growth with farmers participating in direct-to-consumer sales, such as farmers markets, CSAs, and other type of models like that.
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
then at the other end, you saw growth that people that are probably specializing more in a commodity market, but those farms and food businesses that either didn't have the land, the access or other resources across the country, we saw quite a decline in those, agriculture of the middle. If you look at like farm gate agricultural receipts, and so as part of that work in trying to maybe address some of these issues, a person like Dr. Fred Kirschenman, Steve Stevenson, and others, as part of this task force, we're talking more about a values-based value chain, food system, one where there's more transparency, more where it is, relational in both in context and content, where it's beneficial for everybody along that food value chain to understand what their values are, from an economic, financial, social, ecological, environmental perspective. That if there's not that transparency, some authors have proposed that it's sort of like a spiral to the bottom, because not everybody can be the lowest cost provider, and in a lot of instances it becomes so competitive that people just can't compete, and so they're forced out of the system. And then because of that, all of the other sort of social, ecological, environmental benefits that these small and mid-sized farms provide to their communities and to the economy, local and regional economies, that becomes an even bigger issue if you're actually looking at the food system as a whole, and trying to account for all of the another sort of economic word is the externalities of different policies and decisions that we make.
I next talked with Dr. Laurie Fox, who has her expertise in water quality and sustainable landscapes. She specifically hones her focus in on greenhouse production as well as ornamental production. While not on the scale of agronomic crops, greenhouse production has always been a core pillar in agricultural production. Most genetically engineered seeds have gone through many years of selection through our greenhouses alone. I talked to Dr. Fox on the grounds of how best to manage your own resources and how the shift to sustainable agriculture has affected her work. Now, I did not have the means to record the audio at the time. However, I was lucky enough to have my younger sister, Hope France, read over the responses from Dr. Fox. Here they are now. Dr. Fox, what do you think in terms of production garners the attention of sustainability?
Industry is looking at efficient water usage, producing less waste, and reducing runoff. Think changes in types of irrigation within head and system designs. Also, the controls, with tech it can turn off during rain. There's also leak detection. When you do irrigation, you irrigate frequently, whether field or house. Runoff deals with well runoff. We look at incentives by regulations. Capturing runoff is key. Ponds are reservoirs for reuse and irrigation, so the water never leaves the property, instead of running off, closing the loop on the water recycling in that regard.
In terms of soil science, are you looking at pore space, water holding capacity for fertilizers, or what exactly?
When you irrigate, the container holds the water so less water is used overall. Better holding capacity, less leaking with your fertilizers. Nutrients and fertilizers cause a lot of problems like the Chesapeake Bay.
Have you seen any patterns or trends that are leaning towards better production?
Sustainability in the last 20 years have become more of a bigger focus. Resources are not limited and the cost of things have been going up. Inputs are going up, and difference is a profit, and if things are going to be more expensive, then they have to be cognizant of all their resources, containers, seedlings, heating, and cooling. It's a lot of costs. Sustainability will be an incredibly important, if not the producers. It is the consumers that are getting more savvy for purchase. People are more now so than ever environmentally sound. Whether something you are eating or growing in your backyard, they look for what the producers represent by checking the practice and making their choices for the products that are better fit for sustainability. Think along the lines of being a smarter consumer.
I wrapped up my search with Dr. Greg Evanylo, who has his expertise in biosolid management and their usage. The biosolids we specifically discussed were Class B rank, which means those are only used by trained farmers under contract. I wanted to see how biosolids can slowly phase out fertilizers and restore land abuse. There's an interesting relationship between them as well as runoff. Here's our talk now. Is there more incentive for farmers to go to biosolids than, let's say, fertilizers or just sprays?
Yeah, so farmers receive Class B biosolids for free.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so there's a lot of incentive right there. So the way the contracting works is that a wastewater treatment plant has to pay somebody to move their material. They can pay a landfill to take it. They can pay an incineration facility to take it, or they can pay a third-party contractor who becomes the applicator to take it. It's the contracts that these applicators bid on are less expensive than what it would cost for the facilities to have it incinerated or landfilled. So right there, by sending it to a third party, and some of the companies named are like Synagro or Recyc, NutriBlend. These are some of the bigger companies that operate in Virginia. So they get paid a certain amount of money to take the material, just like a landfill would. but they get paid less. But this is, and then what they do is they find farmers, they advertise to farmers, and they go through the whole process of writing the nutrient management plan for the farmers, going out to the farmer's site. As I mentioned earlier, they'll flag off environmentally sensitive areas, like if it's being applied in limestone-derived soils, there might be karst outcrops and sinkholes, and you can't apply in and around those, so they would flag around those. There's certain distances to homes, roads, surface waters, wells. So they do all this work for the farmer to ensure that when the material is delivered to the site, and then it is, which is called staging. The staging process is when these trucks that carry 21 tons of dewatered biosolids come down and find a certain designated spot on the farm that they can dump the biosolids, and then the loaders will pick it up and apply it onto these manure type spreaders, and then the application company will apply it to the land using their spreaders according to these nutrient management plans that they have written and been accepted by Department of Environmental Quality. So the farmers basically are signing up for this, and they're getting, I mean, they have to, their biggest issues often are dealing with their neighbors, who are sometimes find the whole practice objectionable. The neighbors may be concerned about heavy metals, odors, organic toxics, pathogens, these sorts of things. And the whole there's like a public information meetings that are done in order to enable nearby landowners to come and hear information on why the industry, why scientists think this is safe, and they have a chance to respond. And but ultimately, the practice has been accepted under regulation within the state of Virginia. So as long as you're following the regulations, the local neighbors can't stop it, but they can sometimes work with the application company or the local farmer who's getting the material in order to maybe ease some of the criteria that might become less of a nuisance burden to them.
Okay. So it seems like there's a lot of incentive overall from both consumer and producer, which is nice to hear. I believe I've adequately shown some of the best practices in our industry in terms of management sustainability. My purpose for this project was to show how we, as a science, are working on bettering ourselves and to stress that the industry is not taking climate change lightly. I have attached a paper detailing the findings of these interviews as well and my own separate thoughts. I have also included the unedited footage and audio from these interviews. If you'd like to check them out, please go ahead. I do not recommend it, however. It is 2 hours in length, but to each their own. I have also included a short blooper reel of this project as well. Please see attached.